part of
Okay. Is everyone able to hear me better than now? Okay. Thank you. So let me quickly share my screen now. So today we have our UNDP team with us. Today we will be seeing the we have received a lot of submissions for the UNDP project, and we have our top 5 volunteers with us who has submitted their work. We'll be the agenda would be okay. Before we get started, it's a there will be a photo session at the end of this event. So please make sure you're all switching on your video. And then the agenda would be first would be the welcome note from Vanita from the Viz For Social Good team. And then we will be moving on to the UNDP team to have a quick intro. And we'll also have the top 5 volunteers to present their work. There will be a Q&A sessions, and Mirko will be providing the feedback for all those work. And also Fred or Vanita would be giving an update on how this champion tracker works. There is something called gamification in Viz For Social Good. And then we'll be wrapping it up. That would be the day's agenda. So Vanita, would you like to?
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Aish. Welcome, everyone. Good morning or good night, whatever time it is for you. I'm based in Toronto, so it's 9 a.m. here. First of all, thank you all for joining and for participating in this event. I just want to talk about Viz For Social Good briefly. We are an organization, and our mission is really about connecting data enthusiasts with data-driven organizations. So our volunteers, who are so compassionate, really create some amazing data visualizations, and I've been so impressed with what I've seen through this current project. We had over 50 plus submissions, and essentially we know nonprofit charities are working to change the world, and Viz For Social Good really enables these organizations to help them with their data and analytics and really communicate their impact through data analytics and storytelling. What you can see here is just an incredible view of how our volunteers and our nonprofit charities have participated with us over the last 5 years. And it's incredible that we've worked with over 40 charities and seen so many different social causes, right? From climate change to ending poverty, furniture poverty, health, gender equality, water. Pretty much every type of United Nations Sustainable Development Goal have passed through our volunteers' hands, and they've been able to analyze and visualize the data. And what's wonderful is we are a global organization supporting charities, big and small. And we are tool agnostic. Any tool is welcome. In fact, we've even had hand-drawn vises being submitted. So it's just incredible to see the work. And I'm really excited to see what's coming today, especially when we talk about the grassroots climate solutions that have been provided by the UNDP lab. So without further ado, I am going to pass it over to Mirko. And again, Mirko, thank you to you and your team. We've seen you just so engaged on the Slack channel and just being so responsive to the volunteers. Makes a huge difference that you're right there in there with us, helping on the data side. So thank you again to your team.
Thank you, Vanita, and thank you, everyone. I mean, being engaged on Slack is the least I could do, since this process was super interesting for us to see, and also the volunteers were super engaged, and responding to the question, I think, is then general decency you can provide as an organization that is asking for help from the general crowd. And before I start into a big monologue, I just wanted to reiterate at this point of time that we are immensely thankful and grateful for all the submissions we received. You'll see the number, it's 45. I think that's really cool and very good. And from what I've seen on the backend data, a lot of people that actually submitted for the first time with Viz For Social Good. So I think the pull factor of engaging UNDP to the general public is immense. And we have to build on this momentum to really engage people and open the doors for others to contribute, and not just the regular stakeholders, going through government counterparts, people that or stakeholders that we work with, but making use of the power of the crowd, as you always call it that way. So one thing that I wanted to know too, and then we can just, I guess, jump straight into, it was super difficult for us to choose 5 people to present for today, since all the submissions had very good angles to them and some even exceeded expectation. But in a general note, we didn't want to just say, okay, these are the top 5 and all the others are forgotten. So even if you are not presenting today, we might still be reaching out and ask for your support, since we really liked some elements of your work. But from a general perspective, we wanted to keep the balance for today's call between, people that are very good and probably have a data science background, people that are just beginning with data science, but still delivered very interesting work to us. So there's a mix between, professional and beginner expertise, but it's somehow leveling and meeting in the middle. And this is what today's call is about, I assume. So over to the volunteers to tell us, I guess, their data story, what insights they generated through working with the grassroots innovation, and sort of what story they wanted to tell. But I'm leaving it up to Aishwarya to guide us through the process. Thank you. You're muted.
Oh, do you want me to take this,
Thank
Aish?
No,
Okay.
yeah. I was
yeah.
talking on mute. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. So as Mirko mentioned, excellent work by all the volunteers. And so we have 5 volunteers today who have set time aside to present. Also, they were special mention also to 2 who could not make it today, Sarah and Sandra. So basically every volunteer will talk about tell their story for about 5 minutes. Please share your screen as you're telling us your data story, and then we'll give you a 4-minute audio warning. And then we'll hear from Mirko, and if there's any brief questions, we can take that from the audience. So Jian, I will turn it over to you first to share your screen.
Thanks. Yeah. Can everyone see my screen? Hello?
Not
Can
yet.
everyone see my screen?
Not it. 1 minute. Let me stop sharing.
Okay. Because here is showing I already sharing my screen.
Now we can see it, yes.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, first of all, hi everyone, I'm Jia Yan, and first of all, I would like to thanks UNDP for providing this data set. It's really interesting project for me, and this is really my first volunteering experience with Viz For Social Good. I'm feeling extremely honored to be selected to be the top 5 presenting today. So let me jump straight through my presentations. I want to start with a disclaimer. I didn't able to cover all the business questions listed, but I only chosen 4 main questions to answer in my visualization. So the first part is about showing the distribution of the innovations, giving an overview by globally and also by the regions. So since the regions are grouped with geographically, so we can go into that buttons by go to the regions by this button, radio button over here. But in the global view, I can see that India has the most grassroots innovations, and there are 51 innovations coming from that. And with this view, you can also select one particular country, and then the mini map here just to show that particular country, what is the distribution of the innovation there. And you can just hover over and also see the detailed descriptions of that innovations. So, and for the Africa, the most country that has the most innovations are Uganda, and the second one you can also just click over here to see. This is sort of like giving an overview, the user like what I can discover, and for one particular country, what is the distribution. So what I can see by just the clicking and playing around with the data, again, India is the most, and then I can see the distribution of the country within India is very comprehensive in my opinion. It's pretty much covering every part of India. So that's a very interesting finding. But for the other country, for European regions, there are not a lot of country has the submissions, but there are 3 countries that are having like a Thai innovations, which are this country that as you can see over here. So at the bottom here, I want to list down what are the top sustainable goals for each particular regions. And as I flick through all the regions, I discovered that most region, apart from the European and the Commonwealth of the Independent State Bureau, have this affordable and clean energy as their main goal to address. So I highlight that 3 main goals that share among all the regions, which are the affordable and clean energy, sustainable city and community and industry innovations and infrastructure. I want to dive into to see what are the overall challenges these solutions are trying to overcome and trying to solve with what kind of approach. So basically, I'm using the tag that is a thematic tag to show what is the most relevant approach. So I'm assuming that's like the approach that they are using. And from here, this chart is showing what are the common approach that they are using among all these solutions. And I can find that because mainly this is surrounded by sustainability and also innovation. So like clean energy, renewable energy, and alternative energies are the most common approach that used by all these innovations. So moving on to the another questions addressing on what are the most commonly used energy sources in each of the bureau, regional bureau. I find that household applications is the most commonly used energy resources, which you can see from this is like the Arab state, Asia Pacific, and the I think this is the European regions. They all have household application as the topmost use, and solar comes second by the Latin American country and Arab state over here. This is, in my opinion, is not that surprising, given the fact that grassroots innovations are usually come from the local community, and they always want to innovate with resources that have enhanced, that is most accessible to them. So, and then the last part, but not least, is the questions about how easily these solutions are actually available to other, because as I think Michael mentions in the brief, and grassroots innovation is very much focusing on something that is shareable and something that can be duplicated by other regions easily. So from this part of the visualization is to show the comparison among these solutions. What are the IP? What are the solutions that is IP protected, and what are the one that is DIY, and what are those product and prototype? So this one is just to show the ratio, and you can see from the color. And from here, surprisingly, with the Asia Pacific, they have a lot of innovations, are pretty much like the product that are ready for markets. As you can see from here, this is 44 innovations that are product, but then they are not so much IP protected, and also they are not really open source as well. And India is basically the key contributor to these solutions. So this top chart here, you can also click on that particular regions to see the specific, more in detail refined for that particular region, what are the country distribution. So from here, as I mentioned, India is the one that has the most contributor, and it's linked back to the top story here with the charts, it has the most innovation, so there's no surprise there. But the surprise that is just they are the product that is not protected by IP. And then another things is with Latin American, I think Argentina also have a lot of DIY project that is without IP. So that's kind of like my key findings through this journey. So that's pretty short from me, and that would be all for my presentation. Thanks for listening.
I guess
Do you
thank you
have
for
any questions?
I mean, maybe Vanita, Aishwarya, do I just reply and give some general comments, or do we have the Q&A first?
Oh, you can give some general comments and then go to Q&A.
No. All right, perfect. Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for this presentation. We really liked your submission because it gives such a deep insight into the data from beyond just the visual representation of what we have, but really being able to explore sort of the solution, the ratio of SDGs, IP versus non-IP protected and DIY solutions. One thing that actually I realized while you presented is that the submission you gave seems to be a different version of the tabular form than what we have now, because one of the comments I wanted to make is that it would be super interesting in the map to be able to select different countries or individual countries, because initially it was only the top contributing country. So you changed that already before the call. That was very sneaky of you. So I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually had the submissions a bit like rushing it through because I was sick in like 1 week. So I didn't able to put in much time working on it. And when I had the idea, I want to like, okay, I want to do this and that, and I couldn't really realize it. And actually I talked to, I forgot, was it Frederick, like mentioned, is it possible for me to just change slightly, like in terms of small changes? I don't have a very drastic change, but it's just, I know like, this is the kind of the version that I actually want to put together, because it's more clear, and it also I make a small arrangement in terms of like organizing stuff. So it's a bit less messy in my opinion than my first submissions. I hope it's fine, but yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing that we were particularly interested in, maybe you can expand on this now as part of the Q&A maybe, is the triangulation of the SDGs, the 3 top SDGs, and how they relate to the thematic tags, because this we thought was an interesting angle from a visual note, but also might give us insight around what sub-indicators per SDG can be tackled through a specific type of energy solution.
Yeah, so basically I kind of pull in this part. I think I briefly mentioned in my presentations that I'm kind of using the thematic tag as the approach, like, because when I look into all the figure, they sometimes put olive in their submissions. So I kind of pull in all the tag together, but only filter out by this top 3 sustainable goal. And this is basically showing that if that particular energy is like commonly used by all the 3 goal, then they kind of like in the middle. That's like the most commonly used approach. Like, but this is what I perceive as an approach. But that's the thematic tag that is the value, the most common thematic tag in the data set. So this is what is shown in the middle is like the overlap for all these 3 solutions. Yeah.
100%.
Awesome.
No more questions for me. Thank you very much.
Okay.
This is great.
Thank you. I think in the interest of time, if anyone does have any questions for Jia Yan, why don't you throw them in the chat? We can get started with our next presentation. So if you want to stop sharing, and who is up next? Should know this. It is Nicole.
It's me.
Let me unmute. All right. Super excited to be here. Thank you for the presentation, and I loved yours before, so this is like a hard one to follow. But for mine, was looking through the business questions and wanted just to kind of give a overview of exactly all of the amazing work that the Accelerator Labs are doing and helping. So starting off with just, an intro on what it is, and then kind of looking at, where are these innovations coming from, which energy source they're addressing, so like household application, which SDG they're addressing, and then the themes. So there was a lot of themes that were going on there, and I think that's so cool how many different ways that these innovations are helping address the SDGs. So for me, I wanted a big picture first, just to see where they were all coming from. And I thought it was so cool that they just come from around the world, definitely focusing the majority from the Regional Bureau of Africa, but in the multiple regions as well. Once I kind of, had this idea of where these innovations were coming from, I was wondering kind of what they were addressing, these energy sources that y'all had. So I found it really interesting that household application was the top one, which makes sense, especially since these are local efforts, and that's really what locally people are needing is in their home. So I was looking up, doing some research on kind of like household applications and why that would be something that would be focused on by these local innovators. And I thought it was really interesting, well, sad, but interesting, on this idea of like solid fuel, including stoves, so wood burning stoves, coal, things like that, and just how dangerous that can be for the people who live in those households, because it's been linked with, COPD, lung cancer. And so once I kind of had that context, I was like, oh, it really does make sense that we're focusing on solar, renewable energy, household applications, and why those would be the focus. Since household application was kind of the energy source that most people used, it makes sense that it was, the largest energy source in each area. But the Latin American Regional Bureau actually had more innovations around solar, which I thought was an interesting call out. Rather than household application, it was the second largest number of innovations. Otherwise, most areas either tied or had most of their innovations around household applications. Clean cooking is something that I'm very interested in. I had done some research for a different project before on gender equality and addressing the SDGs. And one thing that came across a lot was clean cooking. So I was really excited to see that y'all had that in your data, and I wanted to do a dive into that. So almost a quarter of the clean cooking, or of the innovations, addressed clean cooking. And so, and most of them are household applications, which makes sense because it's, these cooking stoves. And these can help, it's not only helping target the energy SG, but also gender equality and moving like almost every SDG forward, because clean cooking addresses over half of the SDGs. Because when we can get into this clean cooking, it affects gender, it affects education, it affects time, and affects all of that. So I thought it was really cool that almost a quarter were around that. I know the SDGs were a big part of the business questions that you guys had, so I wanted to make sure to really touch on that with the innovations. And I noticed that there was 5 spots people could address the SDG that the innovation was addressing, with at least 5. So I broke it up into how many SDGs each innovation was addressing. I'm sorry, I know it's 9, but it's early for me and I'm out of caffeine, so I'm like stumbling. But I thought it was really cool that the majority of the innovations addressed at least 3 sustainable development goals. So these innovations are not just super focused and target on one area. Like, it's one innovation that can address a lot of different issues, and the fact that a lot was really interesting to me. Based on the kind of work that the Accelerator Labs are focusing on, it wasn't surprising that affordable and clean energy was the most addressed sustainable development goal. but every SDG had at least one innovation in it. So, the work that these innovations are doing is just so helpful worldwide. Breaking it down by SDG and region, again, the most was number 7, but the sustainable cities was the second most addressed sustainable development goal. And it was just really interesting that, the one, peace and justice, came from the Bureau for Europe. Most of the ones from Africa, from the African Regional Bureau, also addressed, decent work, economic growth, gender equality. So just going through all of these different innovations and where they were was something I wanted to do. And then I was curious, we look at the regional areas, but I also wanted to look at the income of the countries where these innovations were coming from. So these come from the World Bank. And, most of the innovations are coming from lower middle income countries. So really being able to stay local and address the needs that these countries have. There was a lot of information on the characteristics of the innovations, which was really interesting for me as I was going through and learning more about what all of these were. And so just looking through and seeing, what's a prototype, what's already a product, what's IP, is it open source? And then of the ones that are products, is it already available? Which almost half were, which is awesome. And do you need an advanced order? And then finally, just a look at each innovation. So each dot is one of the innovations, and you can hover over it to kind of learn more about each one. So kind of more of the qualitative answers. This is an electric bike, it's a prototype, it's open source, and just a way to kind of learn a little bit more about each one from each region and what they're doing. So I hope that was 5 minutes.
I would think so. Congratulations. I saw Satoshi clapping. No, I mean, thank you very much also, Nicole. This was, I think, a very comprehensive overview that definitely took some time to digest, because I think when I looked at it at first, I was like, oh, that's a lot. And then I started reading, and then it made sense the more I went through it. And what we liked generally was that you took the liberty to go beyond the data provided. You did add some academic sources when you wanted to define what are households application. You had this specific interest in clean cooking, which interestingly is something that we also wanted to look in through the data and through the sort of mapping of solutions, and use. I think you were the only one in the whole cohort that had this specific mention of clean cooking and really tried to deep into. So it helped us a lot to understand a bit of the patterns that, in a big Excel sheet or whatever, you necessarily wouldn't see. And then visually it was very appealing. So we liked a lot the dots in the end that helps you to explore some of the solution. The burst chart at the beginning was super interesting, even though I think the burst chart I needed to explain 2 or 3 times to colleagues that had no idea what we're looking at. But ultimately it landed, and it was, helpful, interesting from the visual campaign, very compelling, deep insights. It would have been top of the notch if some of those were filterable. So if you want to deep dive into a specific area, but I think that is just something that one can mention, but it's not necessarily a necessity at this stage. So yeah, this was, very well received from us. Thank you so much, and well done, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay, Nicole, if you can stop. Oh, you've stopped sharing your screen. So next up is Sam. Over to you, Sam.
Yes.
And thank you, Nicole. That was amazing. Okay.
Thank you.
I guess everyone can see my screen.
We do.
Not quite yet. Oh, okay. Some people do, I guess.
Can I see it? I think.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Cool. Sure. My presentation will be short. And here, everyone, I'm Sam. And for this project, I was quite inspired and touched by the grassroots innovators from the documentary called For Tomorrow. It tells a story about the people who fight for living and solve their own challenges. My target audience is the UNDP project team and the potential founders, and they need the information to prioritize funding and the resources. From this data set, I found a large number of collections from all over the world, and they are all at different stages of development. This creates difficulty for prioritizing the projects for further development and the funding distribution. So I start looking for criteria from the dataset that are important for my target audience. The criteria I used are sustainability, accessibility, and scalability. Then I introduced a straightforward scoring system to rank the projects. With this idea, my visual presentation focused on prioritizing the grassroots projects for future investigation. You can see in this graphic, I highlighted the word grassroots in the black and a bold font, and I used the grayscale for the word innovation to emphasize all the solutions are grassroots invented by the local people. To fit all data points in the one chart and make it more visually appealing, I choose a circular bar graph and a combined shape and color features to attract viewers' attention. Also, the detailed information of each project is embedded in the graphic, and the viewer can activate it by hovering over the graphic. I also put an example inside the chart to show what information is included. In the description section, I quoted a narrative from documentary that inspired me, and it also highlighted the topic of this visualization. Then I briefly summarized the UNDP organization and its work. After that, I explained the scoring system and the COID SAS index using the initials of the 3 criteria. Overall, from this work, I want to use streamlined visualization to help the UNDP team to prioritize projects for further development and leverage funding resources to empower the grassroots innovators with potentials. That's my presentation and my advice. Thank you for having me today.
I guess thank you, Sam, for producing that overview. And actually, I think nobody really expected someone to come up with an own index to rank and rate the grassroots innovations that we had mapped. So this is actually very great because it gives us an insight that indeed, again, like Nicole did, it goes beyond what we actually had provided and what we probably were expecting. We really liked, first of all, the visual representation of it, because I guess it gives a clear overview about which grassroots innovations are probably for us interesting to look in a bit more deeper, but also then helps you to sort of align them to each other and compare which have a bit more of a chance to grow and scale than potentially others. There were, however, a few comments that we had while looking at it. I mean, one is currently the burst is organized by ID number. So you basically look the submission ID and I think chronologically order them from 0 to greatest. It would be super interesting if this would be by regional bureau or by geographic location, so that we see how the different solutions from a different region compare to each other to the others. So having the how you call it, the organizing order based on location, not necessarily on ID. And secondly, what if you want to provide a deeper level of analysis is then if you select a certain solution out of the bar chart or out of the burst chart to understand what there is, if the index is explained. So now we see, for example, in this, the Ecuador lab had a solution that has an index of 12.25. What is the distribution? You know, is sustainability higher than accessibility, or is scalability higher than sustainability, what are the differentiating factors that you had calculated in order to rate that project. And then lastly, if you would click on the solution description, you would get the full overview of what we're actually speaking about. That's just, again, a few comments or a few insights that we wished in this particular one to had available to go deeper. But generally, this is super great. It was a very interesting overview to look at. And I mean, that you took the time to rate the solutions beyond what was given and really calculated your own sustainability index, so to say, is great. And it was very well received. So also thank you for that, Sam. Well done, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I first look at this grassroots innovations. Some are really, really good, but some grassroots innovations, it looks, to be honest, it looks like a scam for me. So I was thinking how we can help the people with real potentials. And I'm very thankful for your suggestions, and maybe we can go deeper with your suggestions afterwards. Sounds very good to improve this, make it analyze more, goes more deeper, which I love to dig deeper information. Thank you, Michael.
Certainly, thank you too.
Thank you, Sam. That was amazing. And next up, we have Satoshi.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Satoshi from Tokyo. I have been a volunteer for Viz For Social Good project from 2018. And thanks always for organizing projects Viz For Social Good teams. And I'm happy to have a chance to talk about my biz here. And now let me share my screen. Can you see?
Now is it
Okay.
there?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is my biz. It's not so big. It's a compact biz. And when I looked at the data of this project, the first things I felt was that each grassroots innovation is associated with so many SDG goals. So I thought I should create a biz to communicate and inform that point. Also, when I looked at the UNDP Accelerator Labs Network website, the colors used in that website is really match to SDGs colors very well. So I decided to use SDGs colors for design biz entirely. And my biz is divided into 3 parts mainly. The upper right plots the location of each grassroots innovations by latitude and longitude data. I used the pie chart to show which SDGs goals each grassroots innovations relate to. And you can zoom in and zoom out and move. With hovering each circle, details will be shown like this, which SDG goals related and the other informations. And next, left bottom. The bar chart on the bottom left this point, it shows the number of grassroots innovations for each energy source used. And heat map below shows further breakdown to the related SDG goals for each goals. The color change from row by row for each SDG goals. And I used about Tableau technique, but I used changing color function for each measure values. Finally, the bottom right, this section, at the center is SDGs goals logo, as you know, and in line with this logo, the circle of SDG goals, I plotted grassroots innovation radially according to each goals. And you can find goal 7 is most common, but also you can see grassroots innovations are involved in so many goals, so many other goals. As Nicole said, every SDG goals have at least one innovations. As this in my biz, the theme was to express the relationships between grassroots innovations and SDGs goals. And last things about Tableau technique, I imported SDGs color palette into Tableau system. If you use Tableau, you can refer my tweet I will write on chat later, and you can use SDGs color palette in Tableau, this palette. I hope it will help if you use and you make SDGs goals biz. That's all. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about my poor English.
Thank you, Satoshi. This was fantastic.
No, it's certainly. And as Doc Elder already commented, you, Satoshi, are pro. You submit a lot to Viz For Social Good. So also thank you for your submission here. Because if you do this a lot, you certainly work on a lot of projects on the end too. This is also, I mean, in a way that was visually very compelling how you visualize the crosscut between themes, SDGs, and solutions. So we were very struck by the bottom half of the table, but also the, again, burst chart that visualizes the solutions per SDG, because it helped to sort of visualize in a very easy manner that, you know, not only the majority of grassroots solutions are within SDG 7, but also the relationship they have between the others. Because I think what was interesting is that if you hover up until one SDG, it also connects to the mention in other SDG areas. So you have that connection labeled there, but then also in the graph, you do see the sources versus the SDG. So that was from a visual perspective, very interesting for us, and certainly something that we would like to explore further. So Satoshi, I mean, easy yet effective. So thank you for that. Very great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Excellent. And now we are on to our final presentation. Ellen, you're up next.
You're on mute.
Thank you. I was just saying, my name's Ellen. I'm based in London, and this is my second submission for Viz For Social Good and my first kind of foray into Tableau Public. Hopefully you can see my screen that I'm sharing now. Let me minimize this. Let me know if not, but essentially...
Ellen, I think we still see Satoshi's screen.
It's still Satoshi's.
Yeah.
Satoshi,
okay, brilliant.
Do you mind? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
No worries at all. Let me reshare. Give me a second.
Nice.
Are you able to see it?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay, so for the analysis that I did, I wanted to take a different kind of perspective and do a deep dive really on those open source solutions that were available in the Excel that you provided. And I really wanted to do kind of a granular analysis. And I think before I go into the actual Viz itself, I'll just show you very briefly what I mean by a more granular analysis. But what I really wanted to understand from those open source solutions, because ultimately these are the solutions that we can really have a look at scaling into different regions and really kind of champion the entrepreneurship of those different communities around the globe. That's kind of why I wanted to look into them in more detail. But what I was interested in was kind of four main questions, which the first of which was what? So kind of what is it? In this instance here, I took a look into the solution description, the supplementary kind of articles and resources that were linked on these rows. to understand what the solution was. So we've got solar charging station in this instance. And then I wanted to dive into the actual area that it was impacting. So was this to do with energy conservation? Was this to do with kind of generating electrical power using renewable energy? Was it composting? Kind of really try to understand what it is and kind of how is this going to make an impact sustainably. And then secondly, I've got energy source. So this is largely similar to the energy sources that were categorized before, but I saw in the Excel that was originally shared that there was scope to kind of have a look into the data ourselves and make our own categorization. So they're broadly similar, but for some of the household applications, I really wanted to understand, well, kind of what was the energy source being used? Was it kind of bio waste? Was it biogas? Was it firewood, etc.? So it's a little bit more of a detailed look into that field. And then lastly, who is the audience? So we've got households for a lot of these, but for some of those solutions, I was seeing that this was going to impact kind of students. It was going to impact farming communities or communities that were quite poor in terms of the energy that they had available to them. So that was kind of the way I approached it, just to give you a little bit of context before we dive into the visualization itself. So first and foremost, open source solutions was the focus for me. And I really wanted to understand what was the proportion of open source solutions per country, and you'll see in a moment for region as well, to see if there was any kind of interesting insights that I could gain here. So that's what you're seeing with these bunch of light bulbs on the screen. You'll see that there's a key on the left-hand side to be able to read this map. But essentially what it's showing is that the number in the center is telling you the number of solutions for that particular country. We've got the flag here as well to tell you the actual country itself. And then this kind of orb going around the light bulb, it's telling you the actual proportion of those 27 solutions in this case that are in fact open source. And some interesting insights that came from this was Argentina. We could see that they had a really kind of heavy number of solutions, 27 in this case, and a whopping 96% of them were in fact open source, which I thought was quite a high statistic. Similarly, there were some other interesting insights that came through that the majority of the solutions per country were concentrated in India, but actually only 10% of those were open source in nature. So the rest of them were kind of intellectually protected. We've got this, as you can see here, if I scroll down, for all of the countries included in that spreadsheet. But I also did this for regional, as I know that you were interested in seeing how the different regional bureaus stack up. And we can see here from the key that it was in fact the Arab states that showed that had the majority of those open source solutions. So in this case, 40% of the 25 submitted. And I think this 103 here is Asia Pacific. So that kind of tracks with what we were showcasing with the country breakdown, in that 51 of India's solutions were actually IP rather than open source. So that was the first kind of port of call. The second piece that I really wanted to look into was more of an overview. So let's take a look at the number of solutions that were recorded. So in this case, we've got some kind of key KPIs here. So 359 solutions recorded. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to make this quite interactive and fun and kind of quite simple and clear for the audience. So ultimately, each of these boxes will represent a solution. And then if you hover over it, it's going to tell you a little bit more about that solution. So the name of it, the lab that found it, the date in which it was recorded, and then a little bit of information in the description itself. And that is the case for all of the light bulbs that you see here. The second piece looks at those that were in fact open source. So we have 100. So that's represented by the blue squares. And then I really wanted to understand that of those open source solutions, how many of them were in fact kind of fully realized products? And that's represented by the green squares that you can see here. And I wanted to look into that because ultimately those products that are open source and kind of are fully realized, they really have the most potential that could be potentially shared or between different regions or scaled up in different areas of the world. So that was what I really wanted to highlight here. The next piece of this gives you a little bit of information on what I just said. So the 4 areas I wanted to focus on was kind of what the solution is, what energy source was used, the sustainability area, and actually who in society benefits from this. And so the first piece here was just a simple word cloud, and that was based on kind of the what categorization. And you can see here, there are some themes that are being teased out. Fuel saving stove was in fact the majority of the solutions. So we can see that's represented by the size that we have here. But also other kind of themes are being pulled out. So biogas, lighting, solar cookers, hot water for the home. These were all products that we were seeing repeated across the Excel that you provided us with, which I thought was quite interesting. And then after kind of that initial analysis, I wanted to bring an element of interactivity to the visualization. So here on the left-hand side is a tree map, and it's a tree map of all of the different energy sources for those open source solutions. And so we can see this breakdown. Apologies, it goes on to the next page. I'm viewing it on my laptop today, but essentially what we're trying to show here is that 32% of those open source solutions were powered by solar energy. And if you hover over each of these different segments, it's also going to give you that breakdown in terms of like the regional bureau too. So you've got that interactivity. So if I hover over that for organic waste in this instance, it will show you, sorry, my laptop seems to have frozen. But yeah, it will show you for each of these different items, the regional bureau breakdown too. And then connectivity. So there were two other questions that I wanted to pose, which was what sustainability area was impacted and who benefits. And I wanted to show the connectivity between the left-hand side of the energy source and kind of who is benefiting and what kind of impacts can we see. So if I click on one of these sections, so in this case, solar energy, you should see that the graphs on the right-hand side will also update. And we can see that not only is solar energy being utilized from a electricity generation perspective with regards to renewables, but it's also being used to ultimately generate kind of thermal energy. So it's being used to power hot water showers and things like that. And you should be able to hover over each of these items that will tell you a little bit more information about the particular project. And if I just hover over one of them here, you'll also see that not only does it give you the same information as before, but it also will highlight what SDG areas are being impacted for each of these projects. So for this one, for example, you can see the colors are the same as what the SDG goals are on the website. And you can see that it's broken down with regard to affordable and clean energy, etc. And lastly, and sorry if I'm going over time here, but the last piece was who benefits. And I thought this was quite an interesting piece because yes, we are seeing that households were predominantly the people that are benefiting from these solutions, because I guess solutions start at home, but there were also some other areas that I thought were quite interesting. So I've broken them down into kind of public transport users. So we were seeing innovations such as the solar tuk-tuk or electrical bicycles and different items like that. And so you can really see here, and I'm sure you've had a chance to explore the different people that these solutions are impacting. So I'm gonna stop there. Apologies if I went over, but thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Fantastic work.
Exactly. Thank you. And no worries if you went over. I think there was a lot to explain and you did that brilliantly. I just wanted to say very at the very start, kudos for successfully copying our design language. We really appreciated that when we came on, that we know familiar colors, familiar fonts, and everything very beautifully designed. And then the interactivity, it really opened up a lot of insights to us that we haven't necessarily thought about. As you said, that the Regional Bureau for Arab States that have the most open source solutions, which we didn't think, because we always had in mind it would be Asia Pacific with India, since the high number of solutions by India is because we also work with an organization in India that contributed beyond the Accelerator Labs. But then also the interactivity, who benefits. You certainly made your own categorization of beneficiaries of certain solutions. So that is quite interesting to look at and really understand and deep dive. So for us, this was, not only very compelling in terms of the story and content that you were showing, but also visually. And certainly Vanita called it a light bulb moment. There were quite a few in this. So also the solution distribution in the light bulb itself, brilliant. We really liked also from a comms perspective. My colleagues from the comms department also say thank you. This was very good and very interesting, and certainly we learned a lot, and I hope you also learned something, and it showed that you were engaged. So yeah, we liked this a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I mean, it was a super interesting project to work on and a great experience.
Great. And so Mirko, if you just want to, just summarize your feedback overall, and then we can do one final thing before we wrap up.
Exactly. I mean, generally, we were surprised positively by the, as I said in the beginning, the great amount of work and the not the feedback, but the responses we received, and generally also from the 5 that have submitted or presented today. We didn't really think that you would go so deep and really engage as much. We were in the easiest way hoping for some nice visualization that we can put on Twitter, and that's it. But I think what we've seen now goes way beyond that. So that is something that we really would like to keep on working. So as a way forward, I certainly be reaching out individually to pinpoint a few aspects that for the campaign, the advocacy campaign, we would like to focus on, because showcasing a full Tableau dashboard is not the best way of bringing about a message for the global campaign that we're looking at, but sort of picking certain aspects of your work. And we would be really grateful if you like to work with us, continue in Continuum to maybe switch a few things and thereby focus on an aspect per se that we can then bring to scale through our campaign. Jeremy, our data scientist, is also on the call, and I know that he had one comment that I think really summarizes a lot of the work that you have done. And I quote him now, sorry for calling you out, Jeremy. I think the really exciting thing is most who presented were able to make the data and the themes they explored their own. And that showed. You really took the time to understand what you're looking at, created an own visual, an own story that transpires graphically, but also in the way that you engaged with us. So thank you for this. I'll be in touch. I'll be reaching out. And then we're gonna continue working on the visuals and what we need for the campaign, and how we can also interact with it and give it the space that it needs, because it's not just a campaign. Actually, the feedback was we can also incorporate this in our report on our website to also enable you to receive the platform and the awareness that you deserve with that great work. Too much on my end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mirko. That was brilliant, and really love some of those the quotes. Absolutely, our volunteers, they just embrace the data and make it their own in the themes. That's what we love seeing, And for those of you who are in the profession of data visualization and work in a corporate setting, you don't have always that luxury of making the data and themes your own, because you're having to follow certain requirements and themes. So it's great that all our volunteers in a way let loose and really become creative. So thank you, everyone. Just before we wrap, wanted to remind everyone about our Viz for Social Good tracker. And this is a way for you to continuously get involved. You get points for your participation in different things. And I think, Frederick, you're gonna post the link, and all of you can also download your certificate for participating in this project. And in case you're wondering what our next project is, we will be taking a break. It's a busy time of the year for everyone, year-end, holidays, and so forth. So everyone needs some downtime, but we are working diligently on launching a project in the new year. So, please keep an eye out for that. And thank you, everyone. Frederick, Aish, any final words as well?
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, you wanted to take a picture, right? Team shot?
Oh, yeah. If you want to take a photo?
Fred, I mean, if you can go ahead. Can everyone switch on your video?
That's it.
Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
awesome. Thank
See you
you.
around. Have a
For
good
those
day.
of you who are starting your Sunday, enjoy your day. And for those of you who are going to sleep, have a good night and sweet dreams.
It's Monday for me.
Thanks.
Oh,
everyone.
Monday. Okay.
Thanks,
All right.
Monday
everyone.
Bye. Take care.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye,
Hey,
Anita.
that was great. You were awesome. How are you?
Good, good. Let me stop
Yeah.
the recording. Yeah.